All right, let's kick things off with a quick question. What do a tiny DNA molecule, a roaming pack of wolves, and the entire planet Earth actually have in common? I know, it totally sounds like the setup to some weird riddle, right? But the answer? It's literally the foundation of all biology. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're going on this epic sort of visual journey. We're going to zoom all the way out from the tiniest microscopic building blocks right up into outer space, just to really grasp the diversity of life on Earth. So it's all about perspective, Seeing exactly how the smallest pieces build the whole entire picture. Now, if there's a golden rule for the structure of life, it's this. Life on Earth is incredibly complex, and absolutely every living thing exists at different levels of organization. But the really crucial takeaway here is that each step up is more complex and it actually includes the level right before it. It's kind of like, well, think of a set of giant biological nesting dolls. Okay, so here's our flight path for today. We'll look at the microscopic building blocks, the individual organism, populations and communities, ecosystems and the biosphere, and finally, why studying life's levels actually matters. Let's jump in. Part 1, the microscopic building blocks. Let's start right at the very bottom, the absolute foundation of everything alive. So our first stop is the smallest possible scale, the molecular level. Living organisms are built out of molecules that handle some seriously essential life processes. But what's actually happening down there? Well, there are three main things going on. First up, storing genetic information. That's DNA's job. Second, grabbing energy, which is powered by molecules like glucose. And third, facilitating all those vital chemical reactions, using proteins and water. When those molecules team up, we step up to the cellular level. The cell is the absolute basic unit of any living organism. Literally, all living things are made of cells. And a cell's main jobs? Well, it needs to breathe, get food, grow, and divide. Think of a nerve cell in your brain, a leaf cell on a plant, or even just a single bacterium. They're basically these tiny biological engines that power everything else. And just to put that into perspective for a second, get ready for a pretty mind-blowing fact. 30 trillion, that is roughly the number of cells inside your body right now. So you aren't just one single living thing. You're a walking, talking collection of 30 trillion living microscopic units. And somehow, they are all working together in total harmony. Crazy, right? Moving on to part 2. The individual organism. This brings us to the level you are definitely the most familiar with. I like to call it the mirror level. Once we combine all those vast, crazy networks of cells, we hit the organismal level. This is an individual living organism. But what actually makes something an organism? Well, the crucial thing here is that it has to do 4 very specific things. It grows, it develops, it reproduces, and it reacts to its environment. So whether it's a massive redwood tree, a cat hanging out in your living room, or just a tiny little mushroom, if it does those 4 things, boom, science says it's an organism. Now, obviously, organisms come in wildly different levels of complexity. On one hand, we've got multicellular organisms. These are made of many cells, like a butterfly, a tree, or, well, you. But on the other hand, we have unicellular organisms. And believe it or not, these are living things that consist of just one single cell, like an amoeba or a bacterium. They are completely self-contained individual life forms, doing their whole thing inside just one solitary cell. All right, part 3, populations and communities. It's time to step outside the individual organism and see what happens when they form groups out in the wild. But before we even get into populations, we need to quickly define a super fundamental building block in biology, the species. Simply put, a species is a group of similar organisms that can reproduce with each other. Okay, keep that exact definition in the back of your mind as we zoom out one more time. So let's look at the difference between the next 2 levels, because they are super connected. First, we have a population. This is a group of organisms of the exact same species living in the same area. So a pack of wolves, that's a wolf population. A cluster of birch trees is a birch population. Pretty straightforward. But then we level up to a community, sometimes called a biosynotic level. This is a group of different living organisms that live together and interact. Think of a whole forest, a swamp, or a coral reef. It's the wolves, the trees, the grass, and the insects, all coexisting in the same space. And what are scientists actually doing when they study things at this population and species level? I mean, they're just standing out in the woods counting deer, right? They're tracking reproduction rates, they're mapping out geographical distribution across different territories, and they're carefully monitoring any sort of evolutionary changes happening within the species over time.
Part 4, Ecosystems and the Biosphere. All right, strap in because we are prepping for our biggest zoom out yet.
See, when you take one of those vibrant living communities and you add in all the non-living nature surrounding it, you've reached the ecosystem level. So an ecosystem is the living things, plus the sunlight, the air, the water, and the soil. The real magic here is the connection between them all. These living and non-living elements are totally intertwined through this constant, ongoing exchange of matter and energy. A huge lake, a dense forest, a scorching desert, honestly, even a little glass aquarium sitting on your desk is a functioning ecosystem. And finally, zooming all the way out to basically outer space, we hit the ultimate level of organization, the biosphere level. The biosphere is literally just the part of Earth where life exists, which, covers almost the entire planet. It includes every living organism and every single interconnected ecosystem spanning across the water, the soil, and the air, the whole shebang. Just look at how this all builds on itself. It's like this grand connectivity map of life. We started way down with microscopic molecules forming cells. Then those cells built individual organisms. Organisms of the same kind got together to form populations. Different populations started interacting to create these dynamic communities. Throw in the non-living environment and boom, you get massive ecosystems. And all those ecosystems functioning together as one, that is our biosphere. It's all just beautifully, almost mathematically connected. Finally, part 5, why study life's levels? We've taken this wild journey from tiny atoms all the way up to the entire globe. But honestly, why does this even matter to us in our daily lives? Well, understanding these incredibly complex, connected structures is absolutely crucial for our future. Why? Because grasping the fundamental structure of living nature and the relationships between organisms is what actually allows us to protect nature and preserve the biodiversity of this planet. Plus, on a more personal level for us humans, understanding the molecular and cellular levels is exactly how we treat devastating diseases and figure out ways to radically improve our own health. Pushing the boundaries of this knowledge is literally what drives us to develop all this exciting new science and technology. So if you take away just one thing from this explainer, let it be this. Life on Earth has a super complex structure, yes, but it ultimately forms one single massive living system. Every single level is closely connected, right from that tiny, invisible DNA molecule all the way up to the entire biosphere. Protecting this fragile, interconnected system, that isn't just some optional side project for scientists. It is an incredibly important job for every single one of us. I want to leave you with this really powerful thought. Study nature. Understand its laws. Protect yourself and others. Seriously, next time you're outside and you look at a tree, a dog, or even just look down at your own hand, remember the trillions of cells and the massive, delicate ecosystems that you are a part of. So, what's your role going to be in protecting this amazing system? Something to think about. Thanks for coming along on this epic zoom out with me, and as always, keep learning.